Yes, Mr. Chairman, my name is Kevin Appel. I'm a member of the Virginia Bar. I've been asked to represent Mr. McKeown by Mark Lane, who is Mr. McKeown's attorney. I'd like to make a statement, if I may. Thank you. Mr. Lane, who is Mr. McKeown's attorney, is unable to appear at this time. This fact has been made known to Chief Counsel's office by Mr. Lane's staff several times over the course of the past week. Mr. Lane has repeatedly requested that Mr. McKeown's appearance before the committee be rescheduled. The committee has, however, refused to reschedule the appearance of this witness, and doing so has deprived him of the right to the counsel of his choice. Mr. McKeown, though willing to testify, does not want to do so without the counsel of his choice. Now, Mr. Lane is familiar with the witness, is familiar with the facts that he will be asked to relate in his testimony, and Mr. McKeown feels that his rights will not be adequately protected without Mr. Lane's presence. I have been called in at the last minute. I am not familiar with the witness or with the matters that he will be talking about, and it's our feeling that his right against self-incrimination will not be protected. I would ask the committee, if at all possible, to please reschedule the appearance of this witness. Mr. Lane has assured me that he can appear at almost any time. He could not make it today. He had another commitment that he could not get out of. He is willing to come from Los Angeles at any time that the committee wants, and Mr. McKeown will testify with Mr. Lane's presence at any time.
All right. As counsel folks, for any comments you may have on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the witness was subpoenaed on February 14, 1978 to appear on March 14th of this year. At that time, he was fully interviewed by our staff and might add cooperated fully with the questioning. Subsequently, the hearing was continued until today. Mr. Lane has attempted to change the hearing date to April 17th. This request was first made on March 27th. Since March 27th, there have been frequent communications between Mr. Lane and his staff, wherein it was indicated that attempts would be made to change the appearance date, but that Mr. Lane should be prepared to appear with his client or make appropriate arrangements to the contrary. At no time was Mr. Lane told that this hearing would be changed, and he has at all times been told that the hearing was scheduled for the 12th. In addition, Mr. Chairman, the committee is prepared, the staff is prepared to recommend that the witness be immunized and the appropriate orders are at hand. Therefore, it's our contention that the witness cannot incriminate himself in any way, and his attorney, Mr. Appel, will be present to deal with any possible pertinent objection, which we feel he is perfectly competent to take care of. And therefore, we feel there can be no objection to his client testifying at this time. It is the recommendation of counsel that the continuance not be granted.
Well, I think the conviction is well taken. This is exactly like a court proceeding. One day, which has a deadline, and by which time we have to finish this proceeding. Like the court, which just goes on year after year.
Mr. Clark, can I make another comment, please?
Sure.
Also recently, Mr. McKeown has received a threatening phone call, which has made him very apprehensive. I am not familiar enough with the facts to counsel him about what he says. He is nervous about what he says. Mr. Lane has more familiarity with the witness and with what he will say, and the witness would be much more at ease with Mr. Lane present. As I said, Mr. Lane is willing to reschedule for any time that he can appear. Today was just a very bad day. He has very pressing business that could not be changed. So I again ask that, if at all possible, that we change the scheduled hearing.
I'll say this. He has nothing to feel from this committee. This is the executive session. His testimony will not be known to anyone. It is not as if he's being charged with any kind of criminal charge or anything of that sort. Not. He's simply seeking information from him. And we are prepared to immunize him so that there can be no possible criminal fallout from him. So that I don't see that there's any danger to human to his rights in any kind. Also, the fact that no weeks said at this time, our schedule is so tight, I think we will have to go more than what that is.
Mr. Chairman, with request to the council, did I understand in the original request of appearance before the committee that there was an earlier date and for the meetings of the council was shifted to today?
Mr. Fithian, the council for Mr. McKeown and Mr. Lane contacted Chairman Stokes by letter on March 10th to request an open hearing and expense monies, which were hearing scheduled for March 14th. The committee considered these requests on March 13th, the day before the hearing was scheduled, and it was for that reason, because of the schedule for March 13th hearing to consider those requests, that hearing was postponed later as well.
So it hasn't been postponed once for a 1 month period?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, it would seem to me that our attorneys are busy, I'm sure, that having already postponed this hearing for 1 month, that the committee would be to advise an additional
The chair will deny the motion for continuance of this kind. I'll ask the witness to be stated in each form of this time. You solemnly swear that evidence you're about to give this subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. I believe the witness has been given a copy of the rules of the committee. At this time, I will give a brief statement concerning the subject of investigation. House Resolution 222, mandating the committee to conduct a sort of complete investigation and study the circumstances surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, including the of the existing laws of the United States concerning the protection of the president and the investigatory jurisdiction and capability of agencies and departments are adequate in their commitment to enforcement. Whether there was full disclosure of evidence and information among agencies and departments of the United States government, and whether any evidence or information not in the possession of the agency or department would have been assistance in investigating assassination, and why such information was not provided or collected by that agency or department, and make recommendations to the House to select committee deemed appropriate for the amendment of existing legislation or the enactment of new legislation. The chair recognizes Mr. Purdy for the beginning of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the first line of inquiry will be related to Mr. McKeown's connection and contacts with Jack Ruby. Mr. McKeown, please state your full name.
Robert Ray McKeown.
Please state your date of birth and place of birth.
January 28, 1911, Houston, Texas.
What's your present address?
1203 Southwest 30th Court in Miami, Florida.
Mr. McKeown, when did you first meet Jack Ruby?
I refuse to answer on the grounds of it may incriminate me.
Mr. Chairman, I request now at this time that the chair direct the order of immunity to the witness.
Chair will ask counsel to give witness a copy of the order of immunity, which I understand you're going to take.
Mr. Chairman,
A copy of the record.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This will be marked Exhibit 92.
Chairman, I assume, I'm not familiar with grants of immunity that much. I assume that the statutory provisions have been followed in the court granting this order, that we proper notice and Attorney General will notify the Senate.
Chair also assumes that.
Mr. Chairman, all proper steps, including notification to Justice Department, were performed.
The witness will now the chair directs the witness to answer the question in light of the immunity that has been conferred on.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Mr. McKeown, when did you first meet Jack Ruby?
Well, can I tell it in my own words? I come about to meet this.
Please do, Mr. McKeown. If you have any questions, we can follow up. Yes.
Well, at the time, I was running a lab, in Texas, and the sheriff's department came to my place and told me that there was somebody trying to get a hold of me from Dallas, Texas, and would it be all right if the sheriff's department would give him my number there? So I said, well, hell, I don't know anybody from Dallas, Texas. So I said, yeah, it's all right. Go ahead and give him the number. So I'll venture to say maybe 20, 30 minutes, I don't know exactly how long, but the phone rang and I answered, and it was a gentleman on the phone. He said, my name is Jack Rubenstein. He didn't say Ruben. He says, I would sure like to come down there and have a talk with you. I said, well, what is this all about? He said, well, I understand you have connections that would benefit me, and I would like to come down. And I said, well, I guess it's all right, come on down here. So I ventured to say about 2 days. This has been quite a while ago, I guess you can understand that. I ventured to say maybe 2 days. Well, this gentleman walked in, and he's pretty well dressed guy, he had a hat on and everything. And he introduced himself to me, and he told me his name was Rubenstein. He says, I'm the one to talk to you on the phone. He says, is there any way we can talk? I said, yeah, if you want to talk, so what do you want to talk about? So he told me, he says, I would like, now I may be getting ahead of the story, you know, it's been a long time, but of course, we talked a little bit about this and that. And he says, I understand you're a very good friend of Castro. And I said, well, I don't know, that's been some time back. I'm out of that mess now, and I don't want to get too much involved in it anymore. So he says, I wonder if you would give me a letter of introduction to Castro. I said, well, I don't know. I said, I don't know you. And I said, hell, I asked him, I said, are you Jewish? And he said, yes. I said, well, I know you're not Spanish. So anyway, he said, it'll certainly be worth your while if you would give me this letter, a nice letter, telling them that I'm a friend of yours and I'm a good friend and been knowing you a long time. I said, well, that would be a damn lie. I said, I just met you 30 minutes ago. I said, I don't know you. So he said, well, I'll give you $25,000 if you write me this letter. Get it where you will acknowledge that I'm a friend of yours and have done business with you and things of that sort. You understand? So I said, Jesus Christ, $25,000 is a lot of money. And I said, where are you going to get that kind of money? He said, well, I've got connections I can get. Well, as a matter of fact, I thought it was full of baloney, you know. But anyway, I did write to him. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this letter, but you give me $10,000. And to show you that this letter will get you in to see Castro. And in the meantime, I'll call Castro and tell him he's coming. But you give me $10,000 now, and I'll give you the letter. He said, well, I don't have that on me right now. I don't have that much money. He said, but I'll be back either this afternoon or in the morning. And he wanted to read the letter, and I wouldn't let him read it. So, sure enough, he did come back the next day. Not only the next day, but two or three different times he came back. They never did get the letter. I never did give the letter because he never did give me any money. But in the meantime, we would talk about things, and he commenced telling me that he had a whole lot of Jeeps, a whole lot of slot machines, and he had access to this and all this. He had connection. And I said, well, that's beside the point. I said, I don't think Castro is going to have it down over there anyway. So, but he kept coming back, you know, and we'd talk and drink a beer together. And he impressed me as I don't know exactly how to say it because the ladies present, but he impressed me as a big bunch of BS. To my opinion, now that's just my opinion. He wanted to act like he was kind of, you know, big shot from down, but it didn't impress me. But the other thing I just figured is that he was trying to find out from me my activities and things of that sort, how well I do Castro, and how that he wanted to find out where I lived, well, how I got involved in all this and all that, but I didn't tell him. So that's it. He left about the fourth day he came down. He came down about 4 times. And he left, and I never heard from him since.
Mr. McKeown, I realize it's been a long time, but I want to ask you a few follow-up questions about both the call and the series of visits. Could you pinpoint for us what year the phone call was?
Well, See, I had got, I bet it was around 61, but I'm not positive. I know it wasn't very cold. And I imagine around August or something like that. I really don't know, to be frank with you. Yes, I should have. Well, I had all this wrote down, but my house burned up. And burnt everything I had up. Everything. And as a matter of fact, I was lucky to get out of the house. And then I had an investigator investigate. I come to my house, burnt up. And they told me that somebody said stop. So I lost everything. I lost everything. I got out of there very short. So,
do you have any time reference points for when the call came? Was it a long time after Castro took over, or a short time? Do you remember that?
it was more or less a short time, because it was all in the papers. I should have brought that with me. I brought it down here, but I have all the papers, the newspaper clippings and everything, but I left it at the room. And then, you can tell on the date about what time that all happened.
Could we obtain copies of the papers from you after the hearing?
Sir?
Could we obtain copies of those papers from you after the hearing?
Yeah, they're at the hotel. And the paper probably got the date on it. But it was after that, you see, because that's the reason, I imagine, that he contacted me, because he read all this paper there,
Do you remember what it was in the newspapers that he read about you?
Oh, gee. Well, I was working for, I was associated with Paul Freeland, and I was getting guns into Castro.
So there's publicity about that.
And you see, then I got caught, you understand? And then the publicity came out.
Okay, when you were arrested for running guns, that was in 1958, is that correct?
I think so. 58 or 59, somewhere. But I was arrested. I gave myself up.
Okay, you gave yourself up, the records indicate on February 25th, 1958. Does that sound correct?
Somehow, I mean, that's...
Do you recall talking with the FBI about these facts on January 28, 1964?
I was what?
Do you recall being interviewed by the FBI in January 1964?
Yeah.
At that time, you indicated that a telephone call from a man you said was Jack Rubenstein came approximately 1 week after Castro assumed power. Is that your present recollection?
Yeah.
Do you recall that Castro came to power January 1st, 1959?
Yeah.
So that would put your phone call approximately a week after that, early in January 1959. Is that your present recollection?
It was right after Castro took power, maybe a week or 10 days or something. I really don't know.
Okay, this morning you said that the man who called you said that you might be able to do something for his benefit.
Yeah.
Did he add any other details as to what you might be able to do?
Well, he said he would like to sell Castro a lot of Jeeps and slot machines. That's what he said. And he wanted to meet Castro. He wanted to go there and meet him.
Okay, limiting this just to the phone call, not to the visit. Did he discuss the Jeeps and slot machines during the phone call?
No.
What did he discuss during the phone call?
He just, like I told you, he just said he would like to come down there and talk to me. And I told him that was all right with me if he wanted to come down.
In the telephone call, did he request your assistance in obtaining the release of 3 people from prison in Cuba?
He said he had some friends over there who would like to get out if I could help him get them out.
Did he say who they were?
No.
Did you have any idea who he was talking about? You say you had known Castro fairly well, is that correct?
Yeah.
Approximately a week after Castro assumed power, were many people in prison.
In prison in Cuba or here?
In prison in Cuba. Did he imprison a number of people when he took power?
Well, you know about as much about it as I do. You read the papers where he did, yes.
Do you have a present recollection of whether he imprisoned people shortly after taking power or later, months later?
Well, I presume that he imprisoned practically right away.
Do you know what types of people he imprisoned after taking power? Were they political figures? Were they gamblers? Were they Cubans? Are they Americans?
Is this line of question important to
That's what I'm talking about. Well, why go through all this? I'm up there to testify about Oswald and Jack Ruby and all this Castro business. I've got that behind me, and I want to leave it behind me.
I'll have to object to this. Mr. Chairman, this line of questioning is intended to gain any information which is possible about the types of people that Jack Ruby may have been trying to obtain the release of from Cuban jails on behalf of possibly some other interest, as well as to pinpoint more accurately the time frame when Jack Ruby would have been making these inquiries, because it is unclear whether or not people were in prison shortly after Castro or later on. For that reason, counsel will contend this line of questioning is relevant.
I think it is pertinent to seek to develop information relating to who might have been in prison. I think the witness knows that this question, but Chair, you pertinent answer.
Can you repeat the question?
Could the court reporter repeat the last question?
It's going to take a little time, but the last question was, do you know what types of people Castro imprisoned? Whether they were Cubans, whether they were gamblers, whether...
Mr. McKeown, let me rephrase the question. Do you have any information about general types of people in prison or specific individuals in prison after Castro took power?
Do I know any of them?
Yes.
No. I didn't know any of them personally. I heard of them.
Do you recall the names of anyone that you heard was imprisoned in Cuba?
There was a friend came from Costa Rica, and I understood that he was in jail. His name was Hernandez.
Mr. McKeown, did Mr. Rubenstein in the phone call offer you any money for obtaining the release of individuals?
Not in a phone call.
How many individuals did he ask that you obtain a release of?
3. So he had 3 friends over there.
Did Mr. Rubenstein indicate that he was working for anyone else when he was trying to obtain a release of these people?
Well, he emphasized that when I asked him about this money, I told him, I said, that's a hell of a lot of money. But he said, well, I've got good connections and money don't mean nothing.
Now, this was the money with regard to obtaining the release of people or the letter?
No, to give him the letter. If I would give him the letter of introduction to Castro, he offered me that money. But I never did it.
Did you tell the FBI?
He never get the letter.
Did you tell the FBI on January 28, 1964, that Mr. Rubenstein, in the phone call, offered you $5,000 for release of each of the 3 prisoners?
Well, he said something on the phone. He said, I got some friends over in Cuba. But as I recall now, he might have offered me some money on the phone, but I don't believe he did. But it seems as though the only time he offered me money was to get the letter. Now, he might have said something, but I didn't talk to him very long on the phone. The only thing he wanted to do, to get from me was it all right for him to come down there from Dallas to talk to me? That was the thing, that was the main thing that he wanted to talk to me about.
Okay. Approximately how much time passed after the phone call when he came to visit you?
Oh, a couple of 3 days.
He came to visit you a few days after the phone call? You stated earlier this morning that the man who came to see you identified himself as Jack Rubenstein. Is that correct?
Rubenstein, that's it.
Do you recall in your interview with the FBI on January 28, 1964, did you tell them that the man who came to visit you did not identify himself?
No. Not as I recall. Did not identify himself?
Yes.
I thought he told me that he was going to start to whatever. I don't recall what I said to the FBI. I just told them that he had came to see me.
Is it your present recollection that the man who came to see you identified himself as Jack Rubenstein?
Yeah.
Could you please give us a physical description of the man who came to visit you?
Well, he was a little bit stout, and he had a little patch on his nose at the time. A little round, little round patch, and I asked him what happened. He said he squeezed a blackhead and it got a little infected. And he had a black hat on, he was well dressed. And kind of a stocky sort of fellow, but not tall or just, I venture to say that he weighed 165, 180 pounds. I don't really know. But he was just average, well dressed, and he wore a hat. I know that.
Mr. McKeown, did you tell the FBI on January 28, 1964 that the reason you knew the man who came to see you was Jack Rubenstein was because you recognized him from photographs you saw at the time of the assassination?
Well, I want to tell you something that I think I went to talk to the FBI before the assassination and then after the assassination, both. I just told the FBI that Jack Rubenstein called, like I'm telling you, he called me on the phone and he came down there to see me and he wanted this letter.
Did you talk with the FBI about Jack Rubenstein before the assassination?
It seems as though I did, yes.
Approximately how long before the assassination did you talk with the FBI?
Well, right after Castro took over, see, and I think Castro took over around 58, didn't he? 58?
It took over January 1st, 1959.
59. Well, it was a little bit after that he came to see me.
Did you talk to the FBI about Jack Rubenstein before the assassination?
Well, it seemed as though I did. I went up to you see, I was on probation. I was on a 5-year probation, and I was scared because I didn't want to get in no trouble. So I believe I went and told him about the guy coming to see me. Up in the post office building in Houston. I'm pretty sure I did. And they told me that was very good information. But you see, right after the president was assassinated, well, as a matter of fact, I was working for the Houston Sludge Pump Company. I was over the sales. I was a sales representative. Well, this lady, she owned this company, and her and I was going to eat dinner, eat lunch. And the bookkeeper, it's all right to tell you in my own words how this happened. He wanted to get some chicken, and we was going to go get some Mexican food at a Mexican restaurant, her and I. So he asked us to bring some chicken back for him. So I went into this cafe where to order the chicken and then tell him I would pick it up on the way back. And that's when I heard the president had been shot. So I come on out to the car and I turned the radio on. I said, the president's been shot. So she turned the radio on, and we didn't go nowhere. We went back to the office and listened to the broadcast on the radio. And the next day, the FBI was out to talk to me. And then I went up there and talked to them about Jack Rubenstein.
Was that the first time you talked to the FBI about Jack Rubenstein?
I think it was, and then again, maybe it wasn't. It's been a long time. I've been through a lot of hell since then.
Mr. McKeown, where were you when Lee Harvey Oswald was shot?
I was watching my television in San Leon, Texas.
Did you recognize the name of the individual who shot Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yes.
Did you recognize his name as Jack Ruby? Did you assume it was Jack Rubenstein?
I recognized him as the man that come to see me.
You recognize his photograph?
On the television.
After Mr. Oswald was shot, did you tell anyone that you had known Jack Rubenstein?
Well, I didn't have to tell him, things like that get around, and this particular fellow that was living there with me, I had married this lady. She was a school teacher, and she didn't know I was in all this mess. I was on probation at the time. So I was trying to hold it away from her. But of course, things get out. But anyway, Sam Neill was there. And he left. And so I told Pauline, I said, I'm going to turn the television on. And I seen it when he killed him. And then Sam called right after he went down to somewhere, I don't know where. But he called me up and he says, hey, man, he said, that's the son of a bitch who was at your house. That's the guy that was at your house. He's talking about Oswald. And I said, it sure is.
Did you tell anyone after the shooting of Oswald that you knew Jack Rubenstein? You just said you talked with Sam Neill about having known Oswald. Did you tell anyone you knew Jack Rubenstein?
Well, I didn't know Jack Rubenstein. I didn't know him just like I don't know you. I'm talking to you now. I don't know you. Same with Jack Rubenstein. I didn't know him. Who know about that? Only thing, he came to me. I never seen him in my life before.
Did you tell anyone?
I had never heard of him.
Did you tell anyone that you had met prior to the time you talked with the FBI?
That I had met Jack Ruby? Yeah, I told a few people that he came to see after this happened.
Did you tell anyone besides Sam Neill that you had met Lee Harvey Oswald after the assassination?
Well, Sam Neill was there when Lee Harvey Oswald came to my house.
Did you tell anyone else that you had met Lee Harvey Oswald after the assassination?
For sure, I guess so. Yeah, told a few people.
You stated earlier that Mr. Rubenstein, who visited you, said he was interested in transporting jeeps and slot machines to Cuba.
Right. That was his subject. But more or less he wanted his letter more than anything else.
Did he say he had possession of jeeps and slot machines?
Right. He said he had them out in Nevada, in a mountain somewhere. Had them hid out in a cave. Now that's what he told me.
Did Mr. Rubenstein say he knew any mafia or organized crime figures who were associated with Cuba?
He said he knew the mafia. He said he was associated with Cuba.
Did he tell you any of those individuals?
No.
Pardon me?
He didn't tell any names on them.
Did he say that he was working for those mafia figures in those transactions?
He said he had connections. That's when I asked him about the money, he said, you don't need to worry about the money. I got a good connection. Money don't mean nothing.
Did he mention any connections with Miami?
I want to know if I knew anybody in Miami. Well, he didn't. He just wanted to know how well I was acquainted in Miami, and I said, well, I go there quite often. I said, I know Priel and a few people.
Did he mention the Clover Club or the Ponce Room in Miami?
Yes.
Why did he mention those to you?
He asked me, he says, are you familiar with the Ponce Club? You know, that was in behind the Clover. That's, in them days, that's where the Latins congregated in the Ponce Club. You understand? And he asked me if I had ever been in there, and I said, yeah. And that's what I always said. He just wanted to know if I knew where it was.
Did he say he had been there?
Well, he didn't exactly say he'd been there. He just wanted to know if I'd been there.
Did you get the impression he'd been there?
Yeah, I got the impression that he knew what he was talking about, because he described the place pretty good.
Did you tell him that you knew people connected with the Ponce Room?
No, because I didn't know him.
Did he tell you that he knew individuals connected with the Ponce Club? When Mr. Rubenstein contacted you concerning obtaining the release of individuals from Cuban prisons, did he initially think your name was Davis?
Yes.
What did he think your first name was?
I don't know, but he got me mixed up with a fellow named Davis over in Beaumont. But, hell, I didn't know anybody named Davis.
Mr. McKeown, you stated earlier that Mr. Rubenstein contacted you because of news accounts of your connections with Cuba. Is that correct?
That's the only way I know how he got it. You see, he called the sheriff's department. See, I was living about 35 miles or so. I was in the county. I wasn't in the city of Houston. I was down what a little place called Seabrook. And I had bought a house down there, and then I had bought this acre of land, and I had built a little shopping center there. Priel furnished the money to build a shopping center, and I think I was ready for trial.
Did Mr. Rubenstein indicate that he had talked with anyone who knew you prior to his call to you?
The only thing I can answer that is to tell you that he told me that I was. He says, you are well known. He said, you are well known all over the state of Texas. He said, I seen your picture in the paper in Mexico City.
Mr. McKeown, can you explain how it was that Jack Rubenstein read about you by your name of McKeown, and yet came to you and thought you were named Davis?
I can't understand that, no.
Did you ask him why he thought you were named Davis?
Well, I used a few names, but I never did use Davis.
What were some of the other names you used?
I used McAllister. I used Henry. Things like that.
Again after.
Yeah, I've seen him on television.
When did you first mention this visit to anyone after the assassination?
Well, oh, you mean after the assassination?
Yes.
Well, you mean who I told that he had been there?
Yes.
No, that's no question. I said, that's the dirty little bastard was at my house.
Who did you tell?
Well, I guess Sam Neal, you see, he was down at this place and he called me on the phone and told me he was watching the TV too. And he called me, he said, Matt, he says, are you watching TV? And I said, yeah. He says, that's the bastard who was at your house that got killed. That Rudy killed. I says, I know it. I said, now ain't that something? I just what I said. Hey, I said, how about that? So I presume that Sam told a lot of people. And I told a few people, I said, that's the dirty bastard that came to see me, that supposed to have killed Kennedy.
Who else did you tell?
Oh my God, man, I don't know who all I told. I told quite a few people, you know, because it was something I was scared too because I was on probation. And I didn't want to let people know that I was interested in knowing a person like that.
Okay, you said you told quite a few people. Can you name one or two that you told?
I told my wife, but she found it out. And I told people that I was working with.
Did you
I told my brother.
What's your brother's name?
Ira.
Harvey?
Ira McKeown. He's dead. He been killed. 3 niggas killed him.
Can you tell us the name of anyone you worked with that you told about this visit?
Well, yeah, I told quite a... See, I used to go out in the oil field. I was so out in the oil field. I traveled all over the oil field, and I knew all the tool pushers and things like that. And I told... now, you see, I can't remember the name. There was one big oil man there. I told him about it. His name is a real big oil man. Told him about it, and I told a couple of his henchmen. And, well, you know, I told a few people.
Do you remember the name of any of the tool pushers that you told about this visit?
No, I don't remember the names, but if I see them, I know that was them. It's been a long time ago.
Do you still have contact with any of them?
No, I don't. I live in Miami. I've lived in Miami since 1966.
Do you know anyone who would remember who the big oil man was who you told about this visit?
Everybody used to know.
Did your wife still live there?
Which one?
The one that you told about this visit?
Pauline, the school teacher?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there any other living person whose name you can give us that you told about this visit? Prior strike to that point.
Sam Neal. He was there when he came.
Anyone besides Sam Neal?
I told my brothers, and I told my sister,
What's your sister's name?
Laverne.
You have more than one brother?
Yeah, one of them dead and the other one living. He lives in Houston. He lives in Houston, Texas.
What's his name?
Harvey.
And you told him about this?
Yeah.
When Mr. Neal called you and told you that Mr. Oswald was the man who visited your house, had you already recognized that fact when he called you?
I had already, I had seen it. And then he called me right. Well, as a matter of fact, it was still on the TV, but And I said, yeah, Sam. I said, that's the little bastard that was here.
Did you mention the visit of Mr. Oswald and Mr. Hernandez to anyone before the assassination?
No, I just, I didn't pay no attention to it because I wish I'd have known that. I'd have sure notified somebody. But, it'd just be like you coming to see me. Well, that's, I didn't think nothing about it.
After the assassination,
I just thought it was a couple of radicals.
after the assassination of the president, you said you recognized the alleged assassin as a person who had come to your house trying to buy 4 rifles. And after the shooting of that person, Mr. Oswald, you said you recognized the person who killed him as a person who tried to make contact with Fidel Castro. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you consider going to the authorities with this information?
Well, I think I went to them.
What authorities did you go to?
I think it was up in the federal building there in Houston. I went and told my probation. I was still on probation. And what's this fellow's name? I can't remember the name. He used to be a professional baseball player. He played with St. Louis Cardinals. And he was head of the probation in Houston. And Fields worked under him. And then he transferred me over to, he was a well-known ball player. I told Gus Mancuso, you know him, you've heard of him, he was a ball player. And I told Frank, he's the city councilman in Houston, Texas now. And told Lawrence Mancuso.
How long after the assassination did you tell your probation officer about your knowing Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald?
How long after the assassination? I don't know. I think the Fields came down and I told him, I said, that's the guy that came and see me over there where I had that place. See, I had sold that place then. And he said, are you sure that's the guy? I said, I know it. Yeah.
So you told the probation officer that you knew Jack Ruby and Lee Oswald?
No, I didn't know Lee Oswald.
Did you tell him you had met both people?
I think so. I think I told him that he's the one to come see me.
Was that a short time after the assassination that you told him?
I think so. I think so.
You were interviewed by the FBI on January 28, 1964. The assassination was November 22nd, 1963. Did you tell these individuals that you had met Mr. Ruby and Mr. Oswald prior to your interview with the FBI on January 28, 1964?
I told him about Ruby. I didn't tell him a thing about Oswald.
So I'm not talking about the FBI right now. I'm talking about these other people. You just testified. You told them about Mr. Oswald and Mr. Ruby. Did you tell these other people about them prior to your meeting with the FBI?
Oh, no. You mean, did I tell anybody that I had met Oswald before the assassination?
Following the assassination, did you tell anyone? Straight. You testified that following the assassination, you told a number of individuals that you knew, that you had met Mr. Oswald and Mr. Ruby.
I told him that was the man who came to see me about finding the kid.
Did you tell these people this information prior to the time that you had your FBI interview?
The FBI came out to the office where I was working right after the assassination. I don't know if it was 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. I don't know when it was. But I know he came out.
Do you remember who it was? Was it Mr. Fultz, F-U-L-T-S?
Could have been. That sounds familiar, but he was a very nice man. I know that. He treated me awful nice. And I went up to his office up in the Federal Building. And I stayed up there with him all along.
Do you recall meeting with him January 28, 1964?
Yeah, in his office.
Okay, that was some time after the assassination.
I think so, yeah.
You just stated that you were in contact with the FBI a short time after the assassination, possibly a couple of days.
Well, I'm okay now. I was in contact when they contacted me. Now, when did they contact me?
They contacted you January 28, 1964.
Well, that's right. Because they came to the office. They came where I was working. And they showed me their credentials. And they said they would like to talk to me.
Prior to the time you talked to the FBI agent, did you tell some of these other people that you had met Mr. Ruby and Mr. Oswald?
After the assassination, yeah. After I seen him on TV.
Right, but before the FBI interview.
Well, I told him right afterwards, when Oswald was killed, well, naturally I told a few people that that's the guy that came to see me. By any means, I wasn't proud of it, but you know what I mean. You know how things like that are. You're going to tell somebody that that's a dirty little bastard that came to see me.
During the FBI interview, were you asked about Lee Harvey Oswald?
Doing what?
During the FBI
No. That's what I came up to understand about it. Mostly he was talking to me about Ruby. Now, if he said something about Oswald, I don't recall.
Did you tell him about Oswald?
No. Not as I recall.
Did he ask you about Oswald one way or another?
Not as I recall. Most of it was about Ruby.
You stated earlier today that you told the truth to the FBI. Is that correct?
Told the truth.
Yes.
Yeah, I told the truth. I'm telling the truth now.
Did you tell FBI agent Fultz on January 28, 1964, that to your knowledge you had never seen or met Lee Harvey Oswald?
Before he came to my door?
No, ever. At the time of the interview in January 1964, did you tell the FBI agent that you had never, at any time, seen or met Lee Harvey Oswald?
No. Didn't ask me.
Does it refresh your recollection to know that the FBI agent reported that you told him that to your knowledge you had never seen or met Lee Harvey Oswald?
Well, I don't know whether I did or not. I'll be frankly, I was scared to death because I was on probation. And I was afraid that if I let people know that I was involved with something like that, they might revoke my probation. Because one time I was down here in Miami, and I was innocent, I was up at the top of the Columbus Hotel having dinner. And I wasn't supposed to associate with anybody, no Cubans. So in walked Frio, Manoa, 2 or 3 others. And, talked a little bit. And next day, the probationer was at my house. I had to go up there. He pointed his finger at me and said, "You're not supposed to talk to people." And I told him, I said, "Well, it just happened that I happened to be in there when they came in. So I made my business not to fool with them anymore."
Do you remember the name of your probation officer?
Here in Miami,
The one you were just speaking of?
Robertson.
Robertson?
Robertson. Yeah, I think he's retired now.
Remember his first name?
No, I know his name was Robertson. He helped me a lot.
So it's your present recollection that you denied knowing Oswald to the FBI. Is that correct?
I can't recall whether I denied it or not. I know I'm almost sure if he'd asked me, I'd have told him. But can you see him?
Mr. McKeown, if you denied to the FBI that you knew Oswald, is that incorrect?
Could be. I might have been wrong at that time. Now you got to take this into consideration. I was pretty damn scared at that time. And I'm pretty nervous right now.
Mr. McKeown, you were sentenced October 24th, 1958. Is that correct? This was a sentence that followed up your arrest on February 25th, 1958 that you referred to earlier. The records indicate that you were sentenced on October 24th, 1958. Is that correct?
I don't recall the date, but I know it was sentenced.
At that time, you were sentenced to a 2-year suspended sentence and 5 years of probation. Is that correct?
Right.
When did that 5 years probation begin? Did it begin the day you were sentenced?
I don't know, but I know I spent some time in jail. He gave me 90 days in jail. Judge Ingraham, and about, I think it was 59 days or maybe 60 days, he let me out on account of his Christmas.
Is it your present recollection?
And then I knew I was on probation. Now whether my probation was the day he sentenced me or the day I got out of jail, I don't remember.
But it was not later than the day you got out of jail that the probation began. Is that correct?
Chair, I have to object. I don't think these questions are relevant to the task of the committee.
Just that one. Chair would advise council that the line of questions 9 to establish the credibility of the regarding certain statements, and therefore I want to remove the objection council to the will start with Our records indicate that you were convicted on October 24th, 1958, and sentenced to 60 days and a $500 fine on one count, and to a 2-year suspended sentence and 5 years probation on a second count. Is that correct?
I'm sure it is.
Mr. McKeown, if
Now, let me emphasize something else in there that you're getting on the jail thing. That is the first time in my life that I was ever in trouble. And I got into that innocently. And all the thing I was trying to do was get my business back. And I want you to know that.
thank you. Mr. McKeown, when did your probation end?
5 years after it started. I don't know the exact date, but I was sure glad to get off of it.
Did your probation end December 11th, 1963?
Could be. No, I know I asked him, I said, don't you give me something that, some kind of a letter or something that I'm off of this probation? And he said, no. He said, you just don't have to report no more.
Therefore, Mr. McKeown, if your probation ended December 11th, 1963, why were you hesitant to discuss your meeting with Mr. Oswald on January 28th, 1964, which was over a month after your probation had ended? You stated earlier that you were afraid to tell about Mr. Oswald because of your probation.
Well, I was presuming that I was still on probation. I was convicted in, have you got it down there when I was convicted in, was it in 1959 or when was it?
It was October 24th, 1958.
Well, I know that when I was living in that house, I was on probation. I know that because I had to make out a report every month. And I know Mr. Fields used to come down to my house.
Mr. McKeown, the records indicate that you were not on probation when you were interviewed by the FBI on January 28, 1964. Why did you not tell the FBI at that time that you had met Mr. Oswald?
Well, the only thing I can say is the reason I didn't tell him is because he didn't ask me. As a matter of fact, I cannot recall this gentleman that I went to see, this FBI man. The only thing I can remember is that we discussed the whole thing about Ruby, how he called me, how the sheriff come and asked me if he could call him, and all this noise. And he was more or less interested in Ruby. Why he came to see me. That's all.
The FBI report indicates that you denied to the FBI agent that you knew Mr. Oswald.
Well, I didn't know.
The FBI report indicates that you had never seen or met Mr. Oswald.
Well, if I told him that, I sure made a mistake, because Kennedy was assassinated before that, wasn't he? So I bound to see Oswald when he came to my door.
So if you denied having seen or met Mr. Oswald, it was not true.
That's not a thing. If I told him that I cannot recall telling him that, I'd be frank with you.
Mr. McKeown, can you think of any reasons why you would have denied having seen or met Mr. Oswald at that time?
No. As a matter of fact, I was all for trying to clear it up, trying to see if he really did kill Kennedy, which I don't think he did.
Do you have knowledge of, or did you participate in any other meeting which involved Mr. Oswald?
No, just the time he came to my door.
Have you had contact with anyone who has had meetings with Mr. Oswald?
No.
Did you know or have you heard of Mr. David Berry?
Heard of him, yes.
How did you hear of him? know?
I know I heard of him.
You know you heard of him, but you don't know how?
I think he was a homosexual, and he was living in New Orleans, and somehow or another this garrison was investigating him with something. And he asked me if I knew him. That's the only thing I know. I didn't know him. I've never seen him. I didn't know him.
And you don't know anyone who knew him?
No, I don't know him.
Did you know of Mr. Guy Bannister?
I heard of it, but I didn't know him.
Did you know anyone who knew him?
No.
Did you know or know of Clay Shaw?
Heard of it.
Did you know anyone who knew him?
Garrison.
Did you know Mr. Sergio Arcacha Smith?
No.
Did you know of him?
Never heard of him.
Did you know Mr. George de Morenshield?
Who?
George de Morenshield.
These fellows died here over in Miami here a while back, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard of him.
How did you hear of him?
Through the newspapers.
Did you know anyone who knew him?
No.
Mr. McKeown, have you had any contacts with the Central Intelligence Agency or any other intelligence service, either domestic or foreign?
I don't quite understand what you mean.
Have you had any direct connections with the Central Intelligence Agency?
Not knowing him, no.
Have you had any connections which you later found out had been with the Central Intelligence Agency?
That they had been with it and there wasn't there now.
Yes.
Yeah. I later found out, but I didn't know that. I didn't have no deal with it.
Could you explain the nature of those contacts?
Just met me and he told me that he would just do the CIA.
Who was it?
There's a gentleman knows him, I think.
Do you recall
His name is Ross. What's his name? Rosa.
Ross Crozier? What were the nature of your contacts with him?
His friend. You're not what you call intimate friend, just met him. Well, I met him at a club we go to.
Do you have any knowledge of any of his activities?
Yeah. He moved, only thing what he told me. See, he recognized me. I didn't know him from Adam. And he commenced telling me about Castro. He was over there in the mountains with Castro. So he said, well, I don't know. The only thing I'm telling you is what he told me. And
Right.
he said that Castro had it in for him pretty well. He didn't want to go to Cuba. But now whether he was with CIA, I don't know. He told me he was.
He told you he was at the time you met him? Or later?
Oh, maybe a day or two later.
Did you have any contacts with any other foreign or domestic intelligence agencies?
Not as I know of.
Do you know anyone who has?
No.
Do you know if Mr. Creo had any direct or indirect contact with the Central Intelligence Agency?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I believe it would be appropriate at this time for members of the committee to ask any questions they wish to pertain to Mr. McKeown in connection with Mr. Oswald.
Yes, I just have one or two concerning these 4 rifles, the 300 Savage scope rifles. Why would anyone want to buy rifles through some underground source, let's say, as opposed to just going to a store and buying them?
Well, like I told the gentleman then, I don't know. Like I told him, I said, hell, you can go down there and see him and get them kind of rifles. I don't know why he came to me.
I know what you said when you said that.
He said, yeah, but we want to get them through you. And I said, well, you're not going to get them. I don't want no part of no kind of rifles. I said, I wouldn't be caught with a rifle.
Well, rifles aren't required to be registered in Texas, are they?
Sir?
Rifles are not required to be registered in Texas, are they?
They sure are. Rifles, now I take that back. I know guns, you know.
Well, I know in a number of states handguns are required to be registered, but I'm not aware of any state that
I don't think they are. Frankly, I think you can just go down to a hardware store and buy a shotgun or a deer rifle or whatever. I think, you know, maybe the law's changed since I bought. I used to buy. I didn't, well, you know, to go hunting.
Well, I think you have to be a resident of the state now, since
Well, as a matter of fact,
situation, but that wasn't the law then.
well, the law, I know, to be a fact, that if you go to buy a handgun, you've got to go and get a permit from a judge. And you got to take that permit back to this place where you're going to buy this gun and let them see it.
Well, the thing that's puzzling me still is why someone would be willing to pay $1,000 for a short rifle when you could buy one in the store at that time probably for not more than $300.
That's exactly what I told him. That's what puzzled me, why he come to me. I can't answer that question.
But he gave no answer when you asked that question.
No, he said, no, we want to get them through you. He said, because we know you can get them for us. Now, I said, well, you come to the wrong man. I'm not going to get involved. And thank God I didn't get them. Since all this came up, boy, I'm sure glad I didn't get them.
Well, again, I'm fairly familiar with rifles, and at that time, I would imagine you could get a fairly good quality scope rifle somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 US with the scope.
Sure you could.
And without any requirement that you either identify yourself or that there be any registration process of any kind.
Well, that was my opinion.
It doesn't make sense to me. I can understand why you might come to you to get some submachine guns and bazookas or some other illegal weapon.
Well, that's what he first mentioned when he first got there, my machine gun and bazooka.
That's all I understand.
But then he brought the rifle.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McKeown, I'd like to just see with you on this. What was confusing to me anyway, your interview with the FBI, where you were specifically trying to ask whether or not you knew or ever met the Harvey Oswald, that interview with the FBI after the Kennedy assassination. You stated again for the record what your reasons were at that time, telling the FBI that you did not know or ever met the Harvey Oswald.
Well, now, wait a minute. I think the question was put to me about Oswald through the FBI. He says, I think he put it, aren't you a friend of Oswald or something of that sort? I said, I don't even know Oswald.
What was your rationale and reason at that time for stating that, and in fact, in an interview with Dan, it's rather explicit about your...
Well, the reason I said it because I was telling the truth. I didn't know him. Just because he came to my door, there's no reason that I should know him. I didn't know him from Adam.
Just a minute ago, when counsel asked you if you knew several individuals For instance, Mr. Marshall, his answer was only in the newspaper.
Right.
Now, if you never met Mr. Marshall, I presume your answer would have been different. Fair assessment?
Sure.
All right, so you hadn't actually met Mr. Oswald.
When he came to the door,
So in other words, the statement that you did not know him.
I didn't know him. I'm talking to you right now, and I don't know you. Right?
I think you understand where I'm getting at. This is now being interviewed by the FBI. He raises the name of an individual who is the alleged assassin of the President of the United States, and you offer the FBI nothing more than the statement that you don't know him, even though you're aware of the fact that the same individual had come to your door 4 years before, less than 4 years before, and according to your own statement said, proposed to purchase from you weapons specifically for savage rivals, savage rivals, and you're saying to the FBI that you don't know the man.
Well, I didn't know him, Mr. Scott. I didn't know him. The only thing I know him is he came here.
How long did that meeting occur?
When he came to my house, not over 20 minutes. Not over 20, 15 to 30 minutes.
Can you recall what he had on that day?
He didn't have a coat on. I know that. But the other gentleman did. He had a tie on too.
Oswald had a tie.
No.
Then, did he have a sweater on? Do you remember the color of his shirt? Or?
Well, he might have had a sweater on, but I don't. I actually believe he was in the shirt sleeves.
The other man, Mr.
He was dressed, yeah.
Yeah,
Coat, tie, very nicely dressed. He was driving the car.
What time was it? Hernandez was driving the car?
Right.
What time
And it was
of
a
day?
station wagon.
What time of day was it?
About 10 o'clock in the morning. 9:30 or 10, something like that.
7 plus. Mr. Oswald and Hernandez. To the best of your recollection, was that a situation where both Mr. Hernandez and Mr. Oswald were transacting business, or was Mr. Hernandez merely someone who was driving a car along with him? It was Mr. Oswald principally who was doing business.
But it was Mr. Oswald that was doing all the talking.
But were you under the impression that both of them were involved in transaction together? I'm asking you recollection. I realize it may not be
Well, I presume they were, yes.
in business together, working together.
I presume. I don't know. Now, I want to tell you something else. Maybe you should know this, too. Is it on? That's the story. Now, I know Mr. Fonzie here, he's treated me awful nice. And I know he didn't tell nobody about me having to come up here. And I know damn well I didn't tell anybody except my dog. And, well, take that back, I told Ross. But about 2 weeks ago, about maybe between 8 and 9 o'clock at night, the phone rang and I answered the phone, and somebody on the phone said, "This is McKeown." And I said, "Yes." Said when you go to that testify at that committee, just remember there was no Latin involved. Period. Now, if that's for any good to you, as a matter of fact, I'd like to see this thing come to a head. I'd like to be able to catch the bastard that did kill the kid. And if anything I can do to help you, I will.
Did the accent of the voice on the phone with a Latin accent? Or was it
No, it's American. Well, a lot of Latins talk pretty good English.
Looking to the record, that I said in my question to you here, other than the Oswald meeting in 59, was the Ruby meeting in 59. It was the Oswald meeting in 63. I have no further questions.
Well, I know the Oswald meeting was before the assassination.
I realize that was my mistake. I will let counsel to proceed with the final question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A follow-up question on the meeting with Mr. Ruby. Did Mr. Ruby mention 2 or 3 Jewish individuals in connection with writing the letter of introduction?
No.
Did he mention Mr. Goldberg or Mr. Zaroff?
Not as I recall, he just mentioned that he had contacts with people with money.
Mr. McKeown, we are interested in some of your dealings with...
And another thing he asked me, he says, haven't you ever heard of me? I said, I don't know you from Adam. I never heard of you.
Did he say why you were heard of?
Well, I don't know. He said he's running a nightclub in Dallas. He said, you ever been to Dallas? And I said, yeah, I've been to Dallas. And he said, you ever go in my club? And I said, not as I can recall.
Did he say what the name of his club was?
Carousel, I think it was. I don't know. It was a nightclub. He said it was not a nightclub.
As I was beginning, we were interested in some of your dealings with Mr. Castro. And I want to follow up the reference you made earlier to a mysterious deal you were involved in with a man named Mr. Butler, who you thought was connected with Ike Eisenhower. Could you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah. Well, this gentleman came out to my place, not Mr. Butler, this somebody else. I don't recall his name.
Was his name Jack Porter?
Sorry?
Was his name Jack Porter?
Yeah. It was Jack Porter.
Okay, please explain the story.
Anyway, he told me it was a very mysterious thing. He told me, he said, do you have any work clothes like khaki pants and things? I said, well, I can get some. What's the occasion? He said, well, we want you to go to the top floor of the Gulf building in Houston. We want you to get off 2 floors before you get to the top and walk and dress like a working person. So I did. I went. And when I got up there, I got him, I like the picture there. His picture was all over, an American flag. And he asked me if I knew anybody was going to be on Castro's cabinet. And if I could use my influence to get quite a quota of sugar.
Get a what?
Quota of sugar. I told him I was on probation, I couldn't go to Cuba. And he said, well, we can get you to Cuba. And said, well, what is it? I think he was a campaign manager for Eisenhower or something. I really don't know who he was. But I know he was up in some kind of a campaign business. And this fellow Porter was there. And that was about all it was to him. That he just wanted me to use my influence to do what I should.
Was this before or after your well-publicized encounter with Fidel Castro in the United States in the spring of 1959?
Oh, this was after I had been arrested.
Right. After you were arrested, you had a meeting with Fidel Castro, and he came to the United States.
Right, he came to Houston.
That was after you'd been arrested.
That was on probation.
When was this incident about the sugar quota? Was it after you met with Castro?
I think so, yes.
Do you remember how much time had passed since you had seen Castro?
Maybe about a week or so or something like that. I really don't know.
Was it your impression that they came to you because of the publicity surrounding your meeting with
That's
Castro?
exactly what I thought, no other reason.
Did you contact anyone to try to follow up this proposal?
No.
Was it your impression that the meeting with Jack Ruby was before or after your meeting with Castro?
I think it was after.
You think, was it your impression that he had seen the publicity about your meeting?
Yeah, that's the reason. The only thing I can presume is that's the reason he came to me, because of all the publicity.
About how long after that did he come to see you?
I don't know.
Did a lot of people call you after your picture with Castro?
Oh, my God, yeah.
Did you say hundreds or?
Well, I wouldn't say hundreds. I'll say I'm in the 20s. Everybody was after me to do a favor,
A lot of people had different proposals.
Yeah, big bunch of them.
During your meeting with Castro, he offered you a position in Cuba and asked you to come to Cuba. Is that correct?
Right.
What contact did you have with Castro after that time?
You mean since he took power?
I mean, after you saw Castro in the United States, what contact did you have with him?
One.
What was the nature and when was that contact?
Well, some friends of mine, Cuban, confiscated their boat, brought them into Cuba. And my brother came to me and told me that these three guys were real good friends of his, and they were very innocent. They wasn't doing a damn thing, but just drifted off into the water of Cuba, unbeknownst to them, and they was fishing. So he asked me if I could help get them out of Cuba. So I did.
Who did you talk to?
Castro.
Who did you talk to before you got through to Castro?
Took me about 2 days to get through to him.
Remember anyone you spoke with?
No. Operators mostly.
You said that was about a week? No, strike it.
No.
When was that communication with Castro on behalf of his brother?
It was quite a while after he was in power. I don't know what year or whatever. It's been quite some time ago, quite a while ago.
The United States broke diplomatic relations with Cuba on January 1st, 1961. Was your contact with Castro before that time?
After that time.
It was after we broke diplomatic relations.
On the phone, but not personally. I just did it for a favor to try to get them guys out of Cuba. But I haven't done anything like that. Well, I've been offered quite a number of times to help get people out of Cuba, but I never did do it.
Do you remember anyone that's asked you to help get people out of Cuba?
Oh, quite a few.
Could you tell us some of those individuals?
They're Cubans.
Do you remember any of their names?
Delgado was one, but there was an influence here, and they offered me money to get their father or their brother or something like that. But I never did do that. I didn't want to get involved.
You said a man named Delgado called you and asked you to try to get someone out of prison.
No, I worked where he was working. I was working.
You were working with him? What was his first name?
I don't know.
Where did you work with him?
At the I was inspector there. It was a subsidiary of Aradex. It was in Miami. Aradex, you've heard of Aradex, haven't you?
No.
Well, it's a big company in Miami that repairs airplanes and jets and things like that. And it was a subsidiary of that.
Does your working with Aradex help refresh your recollection as to when the call to Castro was?
No, it was before I came down here.
Can you give us a better idea as to what year or what month the call?
Well, I'll just say maybe 65, because I came to Miami in 66 and went to work for it.
So you called Castro after the assassination?
Oh, yeah, long after that.
It was after the assassination that you called him on behalf of your brother? Did you discuss anything else with Castro?
No.
All you did was call him and ask him to get your brother out of prison?
But he would do it.
And he said he would?
Not my brother. My brother wasn't in prison. My brother's friends.
Do you recall who your brother's friends were?
No. I don't have to answer that. They were very respectable people. They was all people. My brother was in the oil tool rental business, and he knew a lot of people.
Okay, you stated today that your only contact with Castro since seeing him in the United States in the spring of 1959 was a phone call to him after the assassination. Is that correct?
Yeah, long after the assassination.
Did you have any correspondence with Castro?
No.
Did you send any informal messages to him or receive any from him?
I sent a man over there to see him. He went over there because I couldn't go over there. And this fellow came back and told me that Castro was expecting me to come over there. But I never did go. As a matter of fact, I haven't been to Cuba since he took power.
Did you send that person to see him?
No, I didn't exactly send him. He was going over there anyway.
Did he want to use your name with Castro?
Yes.
For what purpose?
Some about exchanging some money.
You want to exchange some money from the money that was in use during Batista to the kind in use with Castro? What was the man's name?
I don't remember.
Do you know anyone that would know his name?
Now, I'll tell you who he was. He was the kind of a bodyguard for this big oil man that I was talking to you about that there in Houston. He's a well-known man, but I can't even recall his name. I haven't been in Houston for about 12 years.
Could that be Mr. Murchison?
No, I know him, no.
Or Mr. Andrade?
Who?
Mr. Andrade.
Andrade.
Yeah.
Well, I know a man named Andrade, but he's not. He lives in Miami.
Could it have been
He's
Mr.
an
Byers?
attorney, huh?
Could it have been Mr. Byers?
No. I think his first name was Frank.
Okay, you were discussing the individual who was going to use your name with Castro to exchange currency. What was the message you sent to Castro?
Well, I told him that, you see, he had this money, and it was Batista's money, you see. It was a whole lot of money. And I was under the impression it would help. I wasn't too mad at Castro at that time because he just took over, you know. I kind of thought he did the right thing, but now I don't. But anyway, I thought it would be beneficial to him to get a hold of this money if he could get it for 25 cents on the dollar. But he refused it. He told this guy, he said, you let Batista eat that money. And he changed the money.
When was this that this man went to see Castro?
It was a little bit after Castro came to Houston. You know, then we came down to Miami, me and his father, and we checked in over at the hotel on Biscayne, and that's when we stayed there together a couple of days, and then he left and went over to Cuba. And then he'd come back and he told me what he said. So he wouldn't know what.
Did Castro send any message or greetings to you?
No. Oh, yes, he did, yeah. He told this gentleman, he said, well, when McKeown comes here, we're going to have the biggest party that Havana's ever seen. Which maybe is lie.
Did you want the currency exchange to go through?
I thought it would benefit him.
That
To get a Castro.
Why would it benefit him?
But he could get all that money for 25 cents on the dollar.
Was this before or after Castro changed the currency?
Before.
How long after you?
Right after.
Right after the meeting with Castro?
Well, you know, I don't say it very day, but right after that happened. There was so much of that money floating around.
Could it have been as late as August of 1959?
I don't know. It was maybe a month or 2 months after.
The meeting with Castro was in April of 1959, and you think it was at most a month or two after that this man went to see Castro?
It must be, yeah.
And you don't recall that man's full name?
No, I don't, friend. I just seen that little time, and that was back. I was living in Houston at that time, and I don't even remember where I was living at that time. But yeah, it was too. I was running that business I had over there in Seabrook, because this particular man came down there to see me to do this. And then we went to Miami.
Prior to your appearance here today, has anyone connected with the Cuban government contacted you?
No.
Did you receive a call from anyone connected with the Cuban delegation to the United Nations about your contacts with Castro prior to this appearance?
Well, Mark Lane met this man, and this gentleman was under the impression that I was dead. And he told me that if I could come to Cuba, that Castro was very generous and he would like to show his appreciation for what I had done.
How recently was this call?
Hadn't been too long ago.
Within the last year?
Yeah.
Within the last month?
No, it's been maybe a couple of months.
Was any mention made by that official of the Cuban government of your testimony before this committee?
Never. This committee didn't even come into it.
Was any mention made of your contacts, your previous contact with Mr. Ruby or Mr. Oswald?
What do you mean?
Did the person who called you mention?
No. They didn't have anything to do with it. They just wanted to know, was glad to know that I was still living.
After Castro took power in Cuba, did you have information of anyone involved in attempts to overthrow him?
Sure.
What were some of the groups that were interested in overthrowing Castro that you had personal knowledge of?
Real.
How long after Castro took power did Frio turn against him?
Well, when he left, he went over. And then he put two and two together, I'll express it that way, that he found out that Castro was a communist. And he didn't want no part of that. So he got out of there and he came to Miami. And that's where he lived till he died.
Was Mr. Frio involved in any plots to assassinate Mr. Castro?
No, not as I know of, but I imagine he would like to. No, not as I know of, no.
Do you know of anyone who was involved or considered assassinating Castro?
Yeah.
Who?
A woman.
What was her name?
Marcel Albanese.
Albanese?
But she double-crossed the guy that was going to kill Castro. And I think he got killed.
How did you learn?
He was an American.
How did you learn this?
Through Frio.
He told you that she had been involved in a plot to kill Castro?
Yeah, but you see, she was to blame for me getting caught, really. She was in with Frio, and I used to go to her house and everything. And she was very much to overthrow the peace. And then she fell in love with not an ambassador, but what he called him, counsel. And then she turned and worked him against him.
What was the name of the man she was involved with in the plot?
I don't really know that. He was a councilman there in mine, for the Cuban government.
Do you know how they were going to kill Castro?
Yeah, with a rifle.
Do you know who was going to do it?
I don't know him personally. I know he was an American.
Did you ever know the man's name?
I don't remember his name. I think his name was Morgan, but I'm not sure.
Could his name have been William Morgan?
I don't know if his name was William Morgan or not.
Did you know William Morgan?
Heard of it
Did you ever meet him?
once
When did you meet him?
in a lawyer's office.
What were the circumstances surrounding your meeting him?
Well, it got nothing to do with this assassination.
What was the date of that meeting?
Oh, I don't really know. It's been quite a while ago.
Was it before your arrest?
I think so.
You had said Ms. Albanese was at least part of the reason you got arrested,
Yeah.
which was February of 1958, so you believe it was probably before February of 1958.
Well, I'll tell you the whole story about it. You see, this fellow came from Costa Rica, one I told you about. Well, he knew that Marceau was in with us, with the overthrow of Cuba. So it was cold. So he went to her to borrow her husband's overcoat because it was cold down in Texas, and she had him follow. Now that's the story. That's the reason they call it.
Testimony today, you talked about the currency exchange ideas occurring shortly after your meeting with Castro in April 1959. Earlier today, you said that the meeting with Mr. Ruby occurred shortly after Castro took power in January 1959. After we talked about the currency exchange idea, you said you saw Ruby after you met Castro. Did you meet Castro before or after you had met Ruby?
The only time I met Castro since this thing is when he came to Houston. And I believe it was after I met him at the airport.
Mr. McKeown, we're discussing the plot that Mr. Prio told you about. You had said that the plot had occurred prior to your arrest, which was in February 1958. Is that correct?
No.
Could you tell us when the plot took place?
Well, there were so many plots that, which plot you talking about?
The plot with the woman, Ms. Alpanez. You said Mr. Prio told you about it. When was that?
Right after he took over. Right, well, as a matter of fact, when he was going into Havana. He was supposed to kill him when he was going to go into Havana.
So that would have been January 59.
Right.
You stated earlier that Mr. Prio became disillusioned with Mr. Castro shortly after he took power. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was Mr. Prio behind that plot which occurred when he was going to Havana?
Not as I know.
He just learned about it from the woman.
He learned about it.
Do you have information about any other plots to kill Fidel Castro?
Just what I read in the papers.
Did you learn from anyone else about plots to kill Fidel Castro besides the newspapers?
No. Well, yes. There were some people come to me, and and offered me quite a sum of money. And they told me that we believe that you are the only one that can really get close to Castro. And they wanted me to kill him.
When was that?
Been some time ago.
Was it before or after the assassination of President
Oh,
Kennedy?
after he took power.
No, was it before or after the assassination of President Kennedy?
Oh, it was after.
It was after the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, yeah.
Can you give us an idea of how long after the Kennedy assassination the plot against Castro was?
Well, I was here. I came here in not here, but Miami in '66, and I guess it was around '68, maybe, because I worked out there at the place. And now, you want to know who offered me the money?
Yes.
You ever hear of a Cuban named Torrento?
Torrento?
They killed him.
Pardon me?
They killed him.
The same people who offered you money killed Torrento.
No, Torrento was the one that offered me money.
Who killed him?
Hell, I don't know who killed him. They killed him in his living room, shot him through the window.
Were they people working for Castro?
I don't know.
You said that people came to you to offer you money to kill Castro. Who else came to see you besides Torrento?
Nobody.
What you're saying is only one person came.
Torrento. He was in a movement there in Miami. And as a matter of fact, all the Cubans that worked around Miami, they were supposed to give a day's wages to Torrento. He was he was guaranteed that he was going to overthrow Castro. He got killed.
How much money did he offer you?
$100,000.
Where did he get the money from?
I don't know. Where the hell did all them Cubans get the money from? That's what I'd like to know.
Did he mention anyone else who was involved in the plot?
No.
Did he mention whether or not you would have to personally kill Castro?
Well, he emphasized that, but he said you're the only one that can get to him.
And this was in the mid to late 1960s?
68 around that, but
1968.
68, 69, somewhere in there.
Did you tell anyone about Mr. Torrento's offer to you?
No, well, I might have told a couple of Cuban friends, but outside of that, I really didn't think much about it because I wasn't going to do it anyway. And I told him, I said, the $100,000, I said, if you offer me $1 million, I wouldn't do that. I said, anybody that killed him is going to get killed. I said, I'm not quite ready to die.
Did Mr. Frio tell you about any other plots to kill Mr. Castro?
No.
So he only told you, he only told you about the one plot which involved Miss Albanians.
Yeah. The only thing, you see, Frio was very bitter towards Castro. And before I went on this CBS broadcast, you remember that? Well, I went to Frio's house, to discuss it with him, whether I should do that or not. Because I had a lot of offers from other people to write books and this and that, but I never did do it. And so I went to Prill. I went to his house, and I discussed it with him about these people wanting me to go on the television, you know, about the assassination, you know, about Oswald coming to me, particularly with the Spanish man that was with him, or we'll say Latin. I don't know whether he was Cuban or whatever, but, you know, he was Latin. And I told Prill about that. And he said, my gosh, yes, do everything you can to get Castro involved in. Well, you can understand his position. He was very bitter towards Castro. You see, as a matter of fact, Prill is the man that practically furnished all the money to overthrow Batista. And then Castro turned out like he did.
Prior to Castro taking power, who did Mr. Prill get that money from?
I don't know where he got the money from. I don't know where he got the money from.
Did Mr. Prill ever tell you where he got any of the money from?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he got the money from any agency of the United States government?
Oh, no. I know where he got the money from, but that's beside the point. He had the money.
Where did he get the money from?
So just hearsay.
Okay, please tell us what you heard as to the sources of Mr. Prill's money.
Well, you hate to talk about the dead, you know, the man's dead. He was supposed to burn up $300 million. And he didn't burn it up. He brought it to the United States. That's everything.
You're talking about Mr. Prill.
Yeah.
That was the money to...
That was some
of the money to be used to try to overthrow Castro.
Yeah.
Where did he get money to try to overthrow Batista?
Well, I guess he used some of that $300 million. He had safe deposit box as big as that desk was sitting there for money.
Okay, you're talking about after Castro took over, Prill got that money, the $300 million, and had it taken to the United States.
Yeah.
But what about before then? Prior?
Oh, no, not before. Not before. As a matter of fact, Prill and Castro was good friends.
Right, that's what you said earlier. You said Mr. Prill helped finance.
Well, he financed Castro. He trusted Castro.
Right, where did he get the money? Where did Mr. Prill
He was supposed to burn this money up in Cuba, and he didn't burn it up.
Talk about prior to the time Castro took power, when Castro and Prill were working together, Prill was financing Castro. Where did Prill get that money?
Well, I don't know where he got the money. He probably used the money that he brought over here when he came over here. You see, he left Cuba in, Batista overthrew him. Well, right after that, he left, but he had this money over here already.
So when Batista overthrew Prill, that's when Prill took the money from the United States?
No, I imagine he took it before that. Don't you think so?
Do you know of any other sources of money that Mr. Prill used to finance Castro's overthrow of Batista?
No, I don't. I don't know where y'all are.
Was Prill ever involved with any Americans who were working in the casino business in Cuba?
No, not as I know. Because I know he was against gambling. I really don't think he was involved with any of the so-called mafia that run the Batista, that run the casinos. I don't think Castro was involved with any of it, but I know that 4 or 5 of them came to me, wanted me to try to help get back over.
Who were they?
Just brief of it. Change it. Wanted me to go and try to get them to open Americana again and St. Suzanne and all that.
Can you remember the names of any individuals that asked for your assistance?
Well, no, I can't. There was 3 or 4 come and ask me. They didn't offer me anything or nothing. They just wanted to know if I could help them out to get to change his mind about the casinos.
When was that?
Oh, about maybe a couple of months after he took over.
Sometime in 1959.
Yes.
Do you know of anyone who went to Cuba to try to change Castro's mind?
No.
Do you know of anyone who went to Cuba to try to have people released from prison? Did you know of Jack Ruby's visit to Cuba in 1959?
I heard about it, but I didn't know about it when I met him.
Did you hear about it before the assassination?
No, I just heard about it recently.
Did you know
a gentleman came to me. He's with the British Broadcasting Company. I don't even know his name. And what is that called? That journalist? No, the one who's with you. Scott Malone. He told me that, he says, Mac, only thing Ruby did to you was to use you to get contact with Castro. He definitely, so Scott Malone tells me, he definitely went to Cuba after he dealt with me.
And to your personal knowledge, you don't have any information that contradicts that?
No. But he seems to have pretty well know it. He says, I know he went to Cuba.
Were they Americans who asked you to intercede with Castro to open up the casinos?
One of them was Italian.
What was his name?
I don't remember.
Were they all from the United States?
Yeah.
Have they all been in Cuba?
Yeah.
Have they been forced to leave Cuba?
Yeah.
Have they ever been imprisoned by Castro?
No.
Did you know or do you know of Santo Trafficante?
Yeah. I know of it.
Was he one of those individuals?
No.
Did he ever send word to you to try to get Castro to open up the casinos?
Well, I don't know if it was him or not, but there's 2 or 3 of them came to me and says, now, if you could go over there and sit down and talk to Castro and explain to him what the beneficiary it would be to the country to open the gambling again, maybe you could do it.
Did those 2 or 3 people come at the same time?
No, each one was different.
Was there ever an occasion when more than one of them came to see you?
On the phone. Talked to him on the phone.
They all talked to you on the phone?
Most of them, yeah.
Do you remember any of them that came to see you?
No.
Did some people come to see you?
Well, there were so many people come to see me. I can't remember the name, but I can't remember all.
Have you ever met Santo Trafficante?
No.
And you said, straight back, did he ever send a message to you for you to communicate with Castro or with anyone in the Cuban government?
No.
Did anyone give you a message on his behalf?
No. You see, the only one that I was paying attention to was false proof.
Did you know of Carlos or Vincent Marcello?
Huh?
Did you know of Carlos or Vincent Marcello from the world?
No.
Did you ever know of them?
I heard of him. It seems like Marcellus, but I didn't know him.
Did you know of Sam Giancana?
I heard of him.
You never met him?
No.
You never had any direct or indirect communication with
No,
him?
I'm glad.
Did you know of Mr. Meyer Lansky?
Yeah. I never had any deals with him.
You just met him?
Never met him.
Did you know of Mr. Michael McClaney?
Heard of him.
You never met him?
Never met him.
Never had any dealings with him?
No. I'll be frank with you about the whole thing. You see, I stayed shy than people. Right today, as Mr. Fonzie here can tell you, I live with my daughter, and I don't get around. I don't go out at night. I don't do nothing because I don't want to get involved with all that. And I'm trying to live right, and that's the whole thing. And I just wish to hell I had never got mixed up in this.
At one time in the late 1950s, as you said, you were arrested in 1958 in connection with armaments, in connection with arms. What was the source of the arms that you had been arrested for having?
You mean what kind of arms?
No, where did you get them from?
Oh, that's good. I don't know.
Did Mr. Prio help you get the arms?
Yes.
Did anyone else help you get the arms?
Well, the only thing I know, the arms was where they told me they would be.
Who told you where they would be?
Freedom.
Was Prio the only one who told you where to get the arms? Do you know who he got them from? Do you know any of the individuals who physically turned over the arms to you?
No, just from people in the warehouse.
Where was the warehouse where you obtained the arms?
Walsh Transfer, Mayflower Transfer Company. But of course, them people was innocent. They didn't know what was in them boxes or trunks or whatever.
Was there any other place you would pick up the arms?
Well, I picked up some over in Arkansas.
Where in Arkansas?
Hope, Arkansas.
Do you recall the Redstone Arsenal in Arkansas?
I've heard of it.
You obtained the arms from there?
No, I told you down in Hope, Arkansas.
Do you remember who you got the arms from?
From a warehouse.
Do you remember any of the people?
Well, I just, the people that was the clerks and thing, and I had the invoice, and I got it.
You have previously stated that one or more United States senators helped provide you with the arms. Is that correct?
No. I don't know of any senators that helped get the arms. I don't know any of them personally that did it.
Do you know any United States senators who, through other people, provided you with arms or helped you get arms?
Like I told you, I got all my arms through Prio.
You never got the assistance of anyone else in obtaining arms. Is that correct?
That's right.
Did you ever deal in arms after your conviction in 1958?
No.
Where did you transport the weapons which you received from these various warehouses?
To two or three different places. But where I got caught was down at Seabrook. I had went and bought a boat over in Louisiana.
Where were you going to take the arms?
Cuba.
Were you going to take them directly to Cuba?
Yeah.
Were you personally going to take them to Cuba?
No, I wasn't going to go.
Who were you going to have taken to Cuba?
This boy that came from Costa Rica, and then there's another guy by the name of Aguila. He was a pilot on a ship, he had worked for the Coast Guard in Cuba. And he was going to take, and then it was going to be a crew of quite a few people.
Did you ever ship the arms through Mexico to Cuba?
Yeah.
Who were your contacts in Mexico?
Nobody. I just rolled in there and loaded the ship up in Tampico.
Did you personally accompany any of the arms to Cuba?
Never. I was there when they came in. I was there when Castro landed.
Who were some of the other people who transported arms in the same manner that you did? Were there other people working for Frio?
Well, I imagine there was, but I don't have any proof there was. There were so many, that different people was trying to get arms to Castro.
Did you know or did you know of Antonio Verona?
Yeah.
Could you please tell us how you came to know him?
He was a friend of Frio's. I seen him the other day. Not to talk to him. Frio was dead a year ago this last week. And they had kind of service, for him. Verona made it come.
When did you meet Verona?
Quite a while back.
Did you know him when you were transporting the arms?
Well, I knew he was a real good friend of Creole. And you got anything down there about a fellow named Cardona?
Miro Cardona?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about him?
Well, he's just a good friend of Creole.
Was he transporting arms for Frio?
Yeah.
Was Verona transporting arms for Frio?
Not as I know of.
Did you work with either of those two individuals transporting arms?
I told you I work for Creole. That's all I know. We stand and work for him.
Did you know or did you know of Frank Sturgis or Frank Fiorini?
I know of Frank Sturgis.
Did you ever meet him?
No.
Did you ever have any communication with him?
No, not as I can recall. I think he lives down in Miami.
Did he know Frio?
Yeah.
Did you know him at the time when you were working with Frio?
I seen him one time over Creole's house, but outside of that, I didn't have no dealings with him whatsoever. I just, he was there.
What were the nature of his dealings with Frio?
No, he wasn't. No, I take that back. It wasn't at his house that I met him. It was at a lawyer's in the Ainsley building in Miami, where I went to pick up the money. And he was there.